All right, guys, welcome back. So, it is our planning day for our writing. Yesterday, we went through TAP, and so I hope that you have that in front of you. So, for this particular prompt, one second, let me pull up our TAP from yesterday. So, just to review, here is what we filled out for TAP yesterday. So, for this particular prompt, they're asking us to pull details from the three passages that we read. And so I feel like it will be best if we use a two-paragraph outline essay, or excuse me, two-paragraph outline for our essay. And so what you will see once we get started, since we're pulling from three different resources, 1 and 3 in this first paragraph are going to be from the first text, which is The Wild Horses of Assateague Island. 2 and 4 will be our explanation. So what do we learn from those particular illustrations? So once again, for paragraph 1, we are pointing out illustrations that were in The Wild Horses of Assateague Island. Okay. And then for 2 and 4, we're explaining what we learn from those illustrations. All right. And then down for paragraph 2, we're going to pull one illustration from the Wild Ponies of Chincoteague and then explain what we learned from it. And then for number 3, we're going to pull one illustration from In Thunder and Rain and then explain what we learned from it. Okay, so that will be how we'll organize the illustrations from all three passages. Okay, so let's start off with our topic sentence. So just as a reminder, here are some strategies to choose from when we are trying to come up with a topic sentence and a concluding sentence. Our options are to ask a question to start off with, start with a subordinating conjunction, or start with a strong statement, something that has facts about or facts from the passages, or something that will grab the reader's attention. Okay. For the purpose of today's writing, I'm going to start with the subordinating conjunction when. All right. So here's a topic sentence I came up with. When authors write informational text, they will sometimes use illustrations to give the reader more information about what is written in the text. My topic sentence, it's very broad, it's general, but it sets my reader up so that they know what they're getting ready to read about. Okay. Now let's get ready to start pulling illustrations from those resources. Now, like I said, the first illustration is going to come from The Wild Horses of Assateague Island. If you're looking at your packet, you'll see the first illustration in The Wild Horses of Assateague Island is just simply a picture of the horses standing on the beach. And so that's all we're going to write down for number 1. On the left, you'll see WHOAI. That simply stands for Wild Horses of Assateague Island. I just abbreviated so we don't have to write the long titles of each of these texts each time. So that's all WHOAI stands for, Wild Horses of Assateague Island. So just abbreviate, put a slash, and then we're simply going to write down what we see in the illustration. And all that we see in this first illustration is simply horses standing on the beach. All right. So go ahead and add that to that first detail line in the first paragraph. All right. Horses standing on beach. And then for number 2, this is where we're going to write down what do we learn from that illustration. When you go back and you're looking at that illustration, you think to yourself, what did I read in the text? What does this illustration connect to that I read in the text? And in the text, it does say something about the reason why they're able to just stand on the beach is because the horses are able to freely roam. They are free roaming horses. Okay, so that's what we learn just by looking at this illustration. We learn that the horses are free roaming. Okay, that means they can go and move about the beach however they want to. Okay, no one's keeping them contained to one location. They are free roaming. That's what we learn from that illustration. Okay. All right. So once you have those details down, now it's time to pull another illustration from the very same text, Wild Horses of Assateague Island. So the next illustration I'm going to pull is this one. Same text, different illustration. So remember, for number 3, you're going to write down simply what you see. What we see here is a horse grazing. That's all. The horse is grazing. So for number 3, you're going to write down the abbreviation WHOAI / and just simply the horse is grazing. We see a horse grazing. That's it. Okay. Then for number 4, you're going to write down, what do we learn? What do we learn just by looking at that illustration? So what I learned when I look at it, I can now understand when the author was talking about the size. Okay, the author talks about how how these horses are small. They have a small stature or a small size, and they are also bloated. Okay, that's why their stomach has that round shape, and it looks like it's kind of hanging low. And that's because they're bloated. So when you look at this illustration, you can now understand what they look like. It shows their small stature, and it shows that they have a bloated stomach because of their diet. Okay, so that's what we learn from the illustration. All right, so make sure you have all of those details written down for your first paragraph. All right, you guys can also go back and add like the page numbers, just so you'll know when you're getting ready to write your essay, what page that illustration was on. Okay, so you can go ahead and add that as well. All right, so now we're getting ready to do our second topic sentence, which is simply a sentence that helps us transition from the first paragraph to the second paragraph. This is kind of, I like to think of it as like a bridge. It's a bridge that connects your first paragraph to your second paragraph. All right. Now we want to show how all of these passages are similar as far as how the illustrations show more about the lives of the ponies, right? So for our second topic sentence, I'm going to start with the subordinating conjunction similarly. So similarly, just like we talked about in the first paragraph, similarly, the authors of Wild Ponies of Chincoteague and In Thunder and Rain, Chincoteague Ponies Make Annual Swim show more information about the lives of ponies by including illustrations. So we're saying, just like the text from the first paragraph, these other two texts that we're getting ready to talk about also show more information about ponies by using these illustrations, okay? So make sure you go ahead and write that down. And now we are ready to start on the details for our second paragraph. And remember what I said, for the second paragraph, we're gonna pull one illustration from Wild Ponies of Chincoteague. That's gonna be for number 1. For number 2, we're gonna explain what we learned from that illustration. And then for the third detail, you're gonna pull an illustration from In Thunder and Rain. And then for number 4, you're gonna explain what you learned from that illustration, all right? So the first, the illustration that I decided to pull from Wild Ponies of Chincoteague is the first illustration here, where you see the horses are in the water, and you also see boats in the water. So the horses are in the water, but they're also near these boats. So that's all we're going to write down for number 1. That's what we see. Horses in water near boats. And once again, this this abbreviation, WPOC, stands for the title of the second passage, Wild Ponies of Chincoteague. So we just abbreviated so we don't have to write that long title, all right? So you're gonna write WPOC to abbreviate, / and then what we see in that illustration. All we see is horses in water near the boats, okay? So then we want to think about, well, what do we learn by looking at this illustration? What do we learn? So the author is telling us in the text about these ponies making this journey through the channel, right? But by looking at the illustrations, we see that this is not necessarily a journey that they make by themselves or alone. This is something that happens and people watch them. So they are watched by people during this swim through the channel. So that's what we learn. We learn that they are watched by people during their swim. So go ahead and add that to detail number 2. That's what we learn from the illustration. All right, now we're ready to move to the last passage and the last illustration. So for the last passage, in Thunder and Rain, Chincoteague ponies make annual swim, I decided to pull this illustration, okay? And I think this is the only illustration from this story. This illustration simply shows us a close-up shot of the horses swimming through the channel. So similar to that last illustration we talked about, but this one we get a closer up view of the horses. So all I want you to write down for number 3, TNR, which stands for Thunder and Rain, / horses swimming in water. That's all we see there. The horses are swimming in water. So think about looking at this illustration. What do we learn about the horses? Well, I notice that when they are swimming, their body is fully submerged underwater, but their heads are still sticking up. And that's probably to help them breathe. That's just an assumption. I don't know if that's true. But what I do learn is that when they are swimming, their body is fully submerged and their head is kept above water. So that's what I learned from that illustration. So go ahead and add that to detail number 4. All right, and then last but not least, our concluding sentence. We want to wrap this up, and we want to wrap it up by using one of the 3 strategies that we talked about earlier. And so I've decided to start with the transition word in conclusion. So in conclusion, illustrations give more meaning to a text as shown through these texts about the lives of ponies. Short, sweet, to the point. Okay, so once again, in conclusion, illustrations give more meaning to a text as shown through these texts about the lives of ponies. All right. So that's our outline, guys. We walked through TAP, we walked through the outline. You've got your details ready. So now it's time for you guys to grab your notebook paper and begin writing your first draft of your essay. Keep in mind that the 2 topic sentences and the concluding sentence, they aren't going to change. So whatever you write down for the 2 topic sentences and the concluding sentence, those will stay the same in your essay. The only thing that's going to change is your details. So all of those details highlighted in blue, those are going to be turned into complete sentences, adding transition words, adding transitional phrases like in the text it said, or on page blank, the author states blank. Okay, so don't forget that for your first draft. Once you finish your first draft, guys, make sure that you pull out that revision checklist that's included in your packet. this is what you're going to use for your second draft. Okay, so you're going to go through, use this checklist, make sure that you have all of these things, double check, triple check, and then make those revisions, make those changes to your essay for your second and final draft. All right. All right, guys. Lots of hard work today. Keep up the hard work, guys. You guys are doing so great, so awesome. Can't wait to see you whenever that opportunity is. But keep working, guys. And don't forget, your fourth grade teachers are here to help. Please reach out to us Monday through Friday, 11 to 3. Okay? All right. And that will be all for today. See you guys.